Hello folks and welcome to our game. Myself Shane Stapleton as always here with Michael Verney. Michael, how are things? The weather, the sun is splitting off the, what did I say again? The sun is splitting the stones?
It certainly is. Just we're miserable enough for long enough, so it's grand to get it now. We'll take it when we have it. And it's funny, like people were saying about whether championship would be in summer conditions or would be in normal conditions. Like this, I'm just living outside Rathdore here. I see silage been cut in the first week in May, so it is proper summertime nearly at this stage.
Yeah, do you, like, in any way is it going to affect matches this weekend? Is the turf going to firm up that much this week that we're going to see a noticeable difference in Cork-Limerick, for example?
Maybe a bit, yeah. Especially down in the park, like in places where the sod is pretty decent already, it probably firms up a small bit more. Speed of everything will just be increased a bit more, and plus it just brings in all them variables of, you know, not water breaks, but making sure that you're hydrated and making sure that you're kind of minding all those things. Like it could be, I haven't looked at the temperature for the weekend, but I believe it's supposed to be fairly tasty. So hopefully the weather will be tasty and the action between the white lines will be fairly tasty as well.
So let's get straight into the Cork team that was released. You can see it here on the OurGame X channel. And we know that Kieran Joyce is out injured, which means Robert Downey is going into the centre-back slot. You have Tim O'Mahony one side of him, Mark Coleman the other. Like, these are players that have played in All-Ireland finals. You know, I was only looking back at some clips of the 2021 All-Ireland. And do you remember that goal that Cork got after, was it coming into the 4th minute? Shane Kingston blasted it to the net. And they went ahead by 3 points at the time. And those two players were involved. It was like a sharp puck out through the eye of the needle from Patrick Collins to Luke Meade. He stayed really calm and composed on the ball, popped it around to maybe Tim O'Mahony. He did the same thing again, and it ended up going through the hands of, I think, Mark Coleman, Owen Cadigan, who was playing at the time. He popped it off to Dara Fitzgibbon, and Fitzgibbon set through Shane Kingston, and he just ran the ball in, blasted it to the back of the net. And, you know, I was thinking more and more about that, and I was like, how are Cork going to win this game? And we all know that they're not going to win this game by hitting a load of 50-50 ball into the area and, you know, trying to bully Limerick out of it. And it's going to have to be something like that game against Limerick in 2021, which ultimately they got destroyed in, and they did resort to long ball, which was, you know, crazy. But they're going to have to be really, really patient on the ball initially and then pick their moment to use the pace that they have. And they have more pace than anyone. I'm sure you'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Like, even again, the first round of 2022, they scored a goal after 15 seconds. What happened? They won the throw-in. Shane Barrett took off, popped a hand pass to Conor Cahalane. He straightened up, popped the hand pass to Kingston, and goal. So I think they're going to have to do that. Be patient, straighten up the line, get someone on the shoulder, and they'll cause anybody bother.
It's brave as well, though, isn't it? You have to be. It's a different kind of type of bravery, as in it's sticking to what you think will work best against Limerick, because we already know what won't work well. And we've seen it down through the years, and particularly with Cork, and you mentioned the All-Ireland final. That's not actually Cork reverting to type. It's just lads probably been a little bit desperate maybe in a situation and just maybe looking out for themselves and driving a ball wherever, whereas they're going to have to be so patient, they're going to have to bide their time, and they're going to have to be brave, and they're going to have to stick with that, even if it does break down a couple of times and the Limerick crowd are getting on top of them. Even though I know it's in Cork, I'm sure there'll be a big travelling support there anyway. And they're going to, because they will not beat Limerick. One thing is for sure, they will not beat Limerick playing the other way. They just don't have the players that can compete in the air with them for 70 minutes, the players that are going to win puckouts off them and things like that. Well, if they have, I haven't seen them yet. So, like, the odd time, maybe they'll have to do that, and they can't just keep doing the same thing the whole time. But I would expect them, like, they need to use their pace, they need to try to break the lines. But similarly at the back, they have to, and it's a big problem now with Joyce being out. They have to make sure that it's like the defence has been falling asunder at different times in the last couple of games. Waterford hit them for 225, Clare hit them for 326. Like, if Limerick get the colour of that, Limerick could win by probably 6 or 7. I know they scored 130, I think it was, in the corresponding fixture last year. Was it 130 or it was 325 Limerick got last year. Limerick will be very on guard of what Cork have to offer, because, like, Limerick were the team that were probably, you know, under a bit of pressure last year, needed to get a result, and they survived against Cork last year. So there'll be no element of Limerick taking them for granted or anything like that. Far from it. They know exactly what they're capable of.
And isn't it interesting that in the history of the Cork versus Limerick rivalry, Limerick have won only 20 times and Cork have won 46 times. But the last 4 in a row are all Limerick, which tells you before that it was 46-16. So it was total one-way traffic up until this.
Yeah, funny one, isn't it? Like, yeah, like it's gas. Your recent memory is just like what you've seen in the last 4 or 5 years. What we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years has generally been 2019 aside, and obviously the extra time in 18 has been Limerick dominance. But like Cork were obviously at the strong hand for a hell of a long time, and even like there was a couple of years there, like in 18 and 19, and even coming into 20, I was thinking Cork are the one team that can really trouble Limerick. But it was probably what you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. It's using that pace and utilising it as much as possible. But see, it's funny. Hurling's a funny kind of a game, and even tactically wise, what are like you have two teams working against each other. One team is trying to make sure that there's loads of space inside. We pull out their centre back, we get their half backs moved out of position, etc., etc. What are you trying to do then? Okay, lads, we keep it very, very compact. We keep the centre back drop in, everyone else drop in, and we make sure there's no space. So Limerick aren't going to just let them do what you said they want to do. Most definitely not. And if they take the wrong type of a ball into a tackle, they will get gobbled up in around that middle third as well. So they need to be very, very smart.
Like Cork are at the edge of a cliff here, and before we go into that and how they'll deal with it, and the fact that they've gotten red cards in the last 2 games and how disciplined they're going to have to be if they want to come out here, what do you make of the starting team in terms of? Sorry, I'll just bring it up on the screen here. But again, just going through this, we know some of the players that are so key to them. For example, Patrick Collins, and he's going to be under pressure. His delivery. I really like Owen Downey in the full back line somewhere. I mean, he's a young guy, but he's been really impressive. Sean O'Donoghue, fair enough, he had the red card last time out, but you normally think he's going to be good. Now, Robert Downey has really excelled in the last couple of years at wing back, and we know he's played full back as well. But I think he could sit if they want him to, or they could drop Mark Coleman in there. I think it's strange that Tommy O'Connell has dropped out of favour because he's such a battler. And then in the forward line, Patrick Collins, Alan Connolly and Brian Hayes, are they all going to stay really, really high? Or is one of them going to forage? I'm a little bit unsure of the balance of how this forward line is going to operate. Any thoughts on their team at all?
Yeah, like obviously, as I said, they conceded at the last day, but it was a much better effort. So like I would have been expecting much the same personnel. I'd be surprised if potentially someone like Ger Millerick doesn't come in. And I'm a big fan of Tommy O'Connell as well. He's gone from being one of the better players in the league to not making the Cork team now, which is unusual, because if you're talking about the qualities that Cork possess, I think he brings other qualities to the table. And just he's a real dogged kind of a player as well. I actually thought Ethan Toomey did very well the last day for what was like his glorified debut. I wouldn't be expecting maybe a couple of changes, but not the too major. What you're saying there about the forward line is interesting. Like you're not just going to need killers against Limerick. You're going to need a couple of real foragers, and obviously Harnady's a forager, and Dalton will drop back. On the inside line, do they have someone that's really going to do that donkey work and come out to in around the 45 potentially to stifle Declan Hannon and Burns and Hayes? I'm not so sure. So it's probably up top. I would see that maybe that they need a bit more balance.
And you feel like at this stage, Limerick are totally back to the team that we know them to be. The team that probably, one of their best performances is probably smashing Cork in that All-Ireland final 2.5 years ago. Based on what happened in the first 50 minutes against Clare, do you feel they're totally over that? Or did Tip have such a, did they misfire so badly that you're not totally sure where Limerick are? I mean,
yeah, I definitely don't think Limerick are where they were a couple of years ago. But they're not in a bad spot, but there still will be some doubts there. Like, it's very hard to get a gauge on the Tipperary game just based on, without being smart, based on what they were up against, and a bit of a kind of a no-show from a Tip point of view. Limerick did what they always do, but no, I think this is going to be a pretty accurate gauge of where Limerick are. I don't know about you now, but I'd be expecting very, very little between the two of these. I'd be expecting, if conditions are, I would say, as they are now, I'd be expecting something similar to maybe what we got last year, which was massive scores. Like, yeah, as I said, I think it was 325 to 130. I'd be expecting something somewhere up along there. And I think Cork will give this a right rattle. Now, I know I've criticised them plenty down through the years, but they're like in the 71st minute in Walsh Park the last day, they were nearly gone out of the championship. Like they were in big bother. They could win their last 2 games and still be caught on head-to-head potentially with Waterford. Whereas now they've gotten this unbelievable lifeline. And we saw how they reacted to, I wouldn't say it was a non-performance, but it wasn't a good performance against Waterford. It was miles better the last day. Can they show us that and a bit more? Because they're going to need to, and a lot of things are probably going to need to click for them. But I would be expecting a big showing from Cork, and I honestly think it's probably only a puck of a ball, realistically.
Yeah, and I just wonder about Cork and the amount of goal chances that they might offer up in this game. Like, they offered up, I think, a combined 8 in their 2 games against Waterford and Clare, and 5 of them were scored, compared with scoring 4 out of 10 themselves, which also would suggest they can create goal chances. Now, at the other side, you look at Limerick from their 2 games, and they've scored 5 out of 8, and they've conceded just 1 from the 7 chances that they gave up, which suggests that, yes, they'll certainly get openings at goal themselves, but they don't seem to offer up too many, and if they do, they find a way to keep them out. So I'm just wondering, like, how many goals will Cork need here? And, like, their season is on the line. So whether that's they dig a little bit deeper because they know that there's no more room for error, and it's like, I was actually thinking about, like, so you know the way they say a cornered animal is a dangerous one. But, like, are Cork actually that dangerous? If they keep getting cornered, that would suggest that consistently you're getting beaten or knocked out or losing the big games, and we're looking at a confirmation of 20 years without an All-Ireland final or All-Ireland title if they lose this game. So what's the stage do you say a cornered animal is a dangerous one, or do you just look in Cork and say, well, they keep losing and that's the bottom line?
Well, they were, I think it's more nearly when they're kind of written off or whatever, which they were after the Waterford game. And then you got a reaction the last day. They're not necessarily been written off going into this game, far from it. And they'd probably point back to going down to 14 men as having a big, a big bearing on why they didn't get a result the last day. But you're talking about their season is on the line, careers are on the line, managerial tenures are on the line. There's a hell of a lot on the line. And it's good as well, probably that it's down in the park too, because they're going to need whatever they can get from the crowd at different times. And in fairness, through thick or thin and through no-shows and malfunctioning defences, etc., the Cork support has always remained pretty steadfast, and they're going to need them in full colour and in full voice on Saturday. Like I'm expecting a bit of a classic now, I have to say. I think this is going to be a bit of a classic. I think you'll see more from Cork than you've seen all year. Will that still be enough? Probably not. As one of the comments said, I think it was Colin Crone, said either Cork win by 1 or Limerick win by 7. That's kind of, and that's a very, I don't know where Colin is from, but that's a real indictment of Cork. If he's a Cork man in particular, that's definitely not good. But that's a real indictment of where Cork are at. They'll either win by 1, as in Everton will be brilliant, or they'll be brushed aside somewhat by 7. And there seems to be no middle ground. It's either ferociously good or pretty bad, as it was against Waterford at different times.
Cronin would be a Cork surname, I would have
big
thought.
time. Big time. I don't know, did you see that picture flying around of Pa Cronin and Donegal O'Grady from the 2013 Ulster final, where Donegal O'Grady, like that's bizarre, isn't it? And like the photographers, that's why them boys get the big bucks. Like the hurl has basically been thrown out and the ball looks like it's on the hurl. It's absolutely beautiful picture.
Yeah, and like, who on this Limerick team do you think now is going to do the damage? Even if you're to base it on previous games, are we looking at Hegarty to go to town again? Keane Lynch with half a hurley, knocking points over as he genuflects. Are we looking at Seamus Flanagan going to town? Gillan? And actually, do you know, it's interesting when I reflect back on the goals that Limerick have scored this year. I mean, 2 of them have come from basically either miss-hit or under-hit frees dropping, and Gillan either being in the way or catching it and smashing it to the back of the net. They're somewhat soldiers of fortune, or maybe they're just so good that even when things aren't going brilliantly, they'll find a way to convert it. But who are you worried about? If you're a Cork person, who are you worried about?
Well, and obviously it was a terrible injury that he suffered, but Peter Casey has given him a fair bit of hardship down through the years, so not having to worry about him is probably a big plus. Maybe Flanagan kind of comes back in and is maybe a bit of a different animal now in this game. He probably hasn't shown the form of the last couple of years yet this year. I would say Gillan hasn't really shown that type of form either. He's kind of poached a couple of scores here and there. What did he get? 1-1 against Tipperary. Obviously that brilliant goal, but I don't know about you. It was kind of a sensational kind of a finish or whatever, but it wasn't to me, like, that goal should never have been happening at all from a keeper's point of view and from a defender's point of view. But Nisha, who's going to do the damage for Limerick at the weekend?
The usuals, I'd say. Galan, like, I mean, like, you know the way there you're saying about Galan hasn't been that good, or like, in the first half, even against Clare, when you think back at, like, and everyone's like, "Geez, they were 7 points down," and God, they weren't playing well. But when you think back, like, Galan made a bit of a ball to that goal chance. Remember, where Flanagan was inside and it was 2v1. When usually you'd be expecting either he goes in and buries it, or he just gives it to Flanagan, who will bury it, and that would have been obviously a much tighter gap going in at half time, etc. So, and then his goals, like, he's just the amount of different types of goals he can get, like where he can win the ball over somebody, he can get a great catch, turn and blast in the net, or like them two, the one rebounds off the post, he's just there. Right place, right time. He's following up the play, flicks it in. There's not much to it, or then blasts that one into the goal against Tipperary. So I just think he's so dangerous. Like, he's probably the best forward in the country. So between himself and Flanagan, I think, who's probably due a bit of a belter, I think, the two of them, I'd imagine.
I wouldn't expect Hegarty to be a bit off like he was the last as well. He was brilliant the first day. It was obviously only a week later. I expect him to be on again on Saturday night again.
Yeah, big time. And then I just think as well, the way Cork have been defending up until now. Limerick,
is that what you call it? Defending?
Well, that's what they call it. But look, I just think Limerick are due to go to town, and there's always loads of talk about around Cork and Limerick about how Cork have their number, kind of, or how this game is always different than the others, and this, that, and the other, and they usually are always belters now, to be fair. But I think now, like, if Limerick, I know losing Casey again is brutal, like, and all, but I think there's just, obviously there's stuff in them, but like, you'd really be like water in the mouth by ready for this one. I think that you'd be going, let's just, when you get a chance, like the old Kilkenny team used to do, when you get a chance on these lads, and we've been waiting long enough now to get to them again, just like Eddie Brennan used to say to us there, he was like, you hold their head under the water until the last bubble bursts, and then that's it.
Them boys were well used to doing that now, in fairness. Jesus Christ. The day in 2005 up in Croke Park, they could have beaten Offaly 20 points and they made sure to beat them 30. That's just the way they were. That's the mentality.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at the last 5 championship games, and people often refer back to 2019 and say, geez, Cork bet them by 7 points that day and they were All-Ireland champions. But since then, in the championship, Limerick have put up in and all wins 222, 332, 225, 325. Nisha, you went to college in Cork, and I don't know if he's just after slipping out there. But like, they do tend to put a big score up. And I just don't know, when I look at that Cork forward line, I know Shane Barrett, if he gets enough ball, he can do damage. I know Alan Connolly can. Now, for Patrick Horgan, after a brilliant performance the last day, he's had a bit of time to rest the body. So maybe he can be back and produce a huge performance again. Actually, Nisha is here again. But Nisha, I was just listing out the high scores that Limerick have put up against Cork in the last few days, or the last few years. And like, you went to college in Cork, you know the Cork psyche to some degree when it comes to hurling. Now, maybe they'd stopped winning All-Irelands by the time you finished up college there, but what would you say the Cork psyche is around this?
I don't know. I don't know. They kind of went just a completely different way, where it was like everything was based on nearly athleticism and short passing, rather than, remember, like, in college as well, they'd be like, right, hey, do you want a puck? And you'd be like, yeah, and you'd run towards the sideline, and they'd be like, no, come back, and they'd be doing these like 7, 8 yard, 10 yard fucking driving the ball into your hand. You're like, no, that's not pucking. Pucking is sideline to sideline and driving it. But like, it was all, they went completely away from, they just kind of nearly got too obsessed with the way that won them few All-Irelands. And look, but then that was 20 something years ago, but they still seem to be stuck in that mentality. I just think that it's too much based on athleticism rather than rather than, you know, the old school hurling or a mix of it that you have to be able to do both. They just kind of went, I just always thought, too tunnel vision on a prototype type of player. And we all know them, like the team, the last, you know, 10, 15 years, they're up and down the Cork teams where it's like, my God, these lads are unbelievably fast, right? And then they always, when they're playing against a kind of a lower tier team, they just pull away from them. Like, say, even when they played Antrim and Belfast, like it was close, and next thing with about 20 minutes left, because they're so athletic, because they're so fit, they just pull away, and end up winning by, you know, 8, 9, 10, 12 points, whatever it is. But then when they come up against a team like Limerick, who are as athletic as them, but then are better hurlers and more physical than them, they just concede too much. It's as simple as that, really. I just think they're too open and they concede too much. And even in the club championship, when you look at the play in the Cork Senior Club Championship, it's very, very open hurling compared to some of the other senior championships. Like, and then you see what happens when they come out into Munster too. They just play too open.
Nisha, like I was saying probably just before you came on the show, that for me, Cork, to have a chance, obviously have to hit maybe 3 or 4 goals. And the way they do that is obviously not long ball, because who's going to be snapping ball over Dan Morrissey in there, and so on and so forth? Nobody. So they're going to have to be patient on the ball a little bit out the field and run in packs, maybe, you know, just always have someone coming on the shoulder and just run at Limerick throughout the game. And if they come up against a wall of players around the 45 or 65, maybe turn back, go across the pitch and go again, and pick and choose their moments to run at Limerick, which is such a difficult thing to do in championship hurling. Like, even watching back Galway, Wexford last weekend, I thought the amount of hits put in was brilliantly insane. Like, if you were anywhere between the 245s and you picked up the ball, half a second later, you were going to get smashed into. So I'm just wondering, is there a way that Cork can do this? And do you see any weakness in this Limerick team at the moment?
Not really, because like, how many times have we said about Limerick? Like, it's mad. To beat them, oh, they'd have to be missing this lad, they'd have to be missing that lad, and etc. The list. But then it's like, yeah, but like, you know, how they won All Ireland without Keane Lynch, they won All Ireland without Declan Hannon, they've won All Irelands without Peter Casey, they've won All Irelands without these players. So it's like, well, how many more lads do you want them to be missing? It's not going to happen unless, you know, it's like Mr. Burns' softball team, where they all, you know, come under all these different type of ailments, like, you know. But just see, Cork's running game is very different than Limerick's running game, where Limerick's running game is based on passing and moving and running off the ball, and then somebody gets it back, there's a 1-2 and Kyle Hayes on the end of it, or whatever it is, right? Whereas Cork's is more nearly based on solo running and speed. But like, you cannot solo run through Limerick. So I thought Connolly on the edge of the square was a huge addition to the team this year in the league. I thought he was brilliant. He's a great target man, which is something they've been crying out for years at this stage. But, you know, who's going to be fishing and floating in around him? Like, that's the big thing. If he can win, yeah, look, the Cork under-20s, but the Cork seniors are not particularly fast when you analyse them. So that was the thing. I thought, when I did a lot of the under-20 games last year with TG Cahir, and watching Cork under-20s last year, they were extremely mean, let's say, against Offaly, where you kind of go, God, this is a bit different here now. They were borderline. Well, no, they weren't borderline. They were beyond kind of dirty at times. But
they had to be, Nisha, because they've been so far the other side of the line. Sometimes you have to go to the far side of the line to find the happy medium, like.
But just back to Nisha, I was just saying, before you jump back in, and like, you've kind of nodded at that point there from Adrian McGrath, Nisha just described the Cork under-20s, but the Cork seniors are not particularly fast when you analyse them. So if you go through this forward line, I would say Declan Dawson probably isn't lightning. Like, he's an excellent hurler, beautiful hands and all that. Shane Barrett, I would say, is very fast. Harnedy is capable of bursting a man now and again, but like, going at 33 or 4, I doubt he'll be running, you know, like a track athlete. Horgan wouldn't either, obviously. Alan Connolly's pretty quick. And I wouldn't say Brian Hayes is lightning. He's a lot of things, but I would say he's lightning. Then obviously you've Dara Fitzgibbon, who is lightning, coming from the middle. So there's a bit of a fair point there, Nisha.
Yeah. I mean, just the Jack O'Connor one, I think, is a strange one. Obviously, again, it's one of these things where, on the outside looking in, wouldn't you think he should be nearly starting from what we've seen from him? Like, he adds something different, where I would, if I was playing for Cork, I would love to see him beside Connolly now, where you have a mix and a match and try leave a 2v2 maybe. But I don't know. Honestly, I just don't think that Cork have the team to beat Limerick. Just it's kind of as simple as that, I think.
They might hit a purple patch at different stages, but Limerick can always seem to figure them out, and they'll turn it into that kind of that warfare where, okay, we're going to make you win your own ball, and if you're able to win your own ball, go at me, no problem. But they will not be. They'll try it at different stages, and it might be successful, but they will not allow them to tip tap around them. They'll push up on them, and they'll make it man on man. And like if it is man on man throughout the field, you'd be fancying Limerick in 10, 11 positions of the 15, realistically.
Wouldn't you make a case, though, for Cork showing whatever about the discipline and getting red cards 2 games in a row? And I would definitely add in that the black card penalty was unbelievably harsh. And I think the referee just hadn't spotted that the ball had been spilled before the tackle had happened from Kieran Joyce. But they have made big comebacks within games. So, like, you look at it against Clare, they were chasing the game at times, but they came back for a run of 1-3 to a point at the start of the second half, I think it was. And even against Waterford, they had a run early in the second half also of 6 points to 1. So it's basically a 5-point burst against both teams there. So you would have to say that would suggest that there is a bit of substance to this team, Nisha.
Sorry, I was smirking at that comment there.
I brought it up just to put you off.
Okay,
Cork Club Hurling.
Anyone who's listening on the podcast, it's Cork Club Hurling is called the Pillow Fight where I'm from. That's David Hogan.
Yeah. More than likely from Kilkenny, I'd imagine. Look, there is, but like you know, like, and you kind of saw it against Clare again. Like, people were trying to push out people, like, trying to push out to like a Horgan, like, right, or push out to like a Harnedy sometimes. But like they're the real leaders on the team. I always kind of thought that they're kind of, and again, like for want of a better term, the kind of the real men, like where where when it comes to championship, you need people like that playing. And then, like you just talked about him there a second ago, you need somebody like Declan Dalton now stepping up and making that next push to the next level. Connolly the same. And then again, like, right, I don't think that forward line would look that bad if you had Jack O'Connor inside there. If that was 5 of the 6. I just really like Jack O'Connor. I think he just adds something totally different, really dangerous, nose for goal, but for whatever reason he's not in there. I just think their biggest problems, like you said there again, now look, red cards, discipline in the back, and just they're too open. They're way too open. They're too easy to get goals against, because like even the Tipperary game last year, absolutely crazy. You scored enough to win 2 games, but then you don't. And then again against Clare, high scoring, but then you're just conceding way too much. But then, like, okay, right, I'm going to contradict myself here, but then you're kind of probably going, yeah, but you need your forwards working really hard and tracking back, and maybe Horgan and Harnedy can't track back as much as they can. Declan Dalton probably can't track up and down like other forwards can in the country, I suppose, like the Limerick forwards, for example. So it's a kind of a transitional period, I was going to say, but they've been in transition for about 20 years now.
And also, if you look at the under-20s that are playing this year, they got absolutely paddled by Tipperary. I'm delighted to inform everyone last week. So I don't know, like, is the production line going to keep producing, Michael? And when will they actually start to use it? Because it still feels, while there's some of the younger lads there, it still feels you're relying on lads that have been around for a while, some 4, 5, 6 years, some way longer.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that. Nisha kind of outlined it there, because when it comes to championship hurling, like, you're not going to put, it's like you always say, you don't put the six best forwards necessarily on the pitch. You put 3 or 4 guys that do your scoring and a couple of dogs as well. Like, and that's the thing. We're talking about like new faces coming in, and obviously I think Ben Cunningham has an injury. He would have been one of the most likely ones to come in, but they still know what they're getting from a couple of the elder statesmen. That's why Harnedy and Horgan, I know there was talk of big changes last year, and there was 6 different changes. I didn't ever see either of them 2 coming out, really. And then Horgan goes and scores 2-10. It's like there's a fair conveyor. There should be a fair conveyor belt there. Has it really been tapped into? It's something similar probably in Galway. Am I right in saying that there's only 2 of the 4 All-Ireland minor winning teams involved in the senior squad at the minute? Did I read that somewhere the other day? And it's going to take, like, listen.
That was when John McIntyre was on with you. Someone commented that. I couldn't believe it. I was reading that. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, I went back through it, and it's all there. Like, there's a load of names that you heard regularly at the time, and they're not involved now. Like, Pat Ryan has
shown that, you know, the players that are playing at the minute, they're the ones he favours, obviously. There was a hint of maybe a few young fellas coming in, maybe Saunderson coming in goals, maybe a few other fellas coming in different places. Hasn't happened. Maybe if it is going to happen, it's going to be under somebody else potentially. And if they lose on Saturday night, like I'd say 2025 realistically will be under a new manager, because there's no way a Cork, like Pat Ryan came in and said that he wanted an All-Ireland within 3 years. Like, you're not going to just wait for the third year and expect it to happen. Like, if they haven't got out of Munster 2 years in a row, like, to me, that's that realistically. So they have a hell of a lot to play for it, but they're going to have to play above themselves on Saturday, and they're probably going to have to deliver something realistically that we haven't seen with this team. Definitely not against Limerick anyway.
But the last few years, like All-Ireland final, that was 16 points. You know, that was an absolute beatdown, and how much space Cork left in their own full back line. You couldn't but feel sorry for the backs who were left back there. Totally thrown to the wolves. Then I remember going down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh for the Munster round robin at the start of the following season. And at times Cork looked pretty good in the first half. They weren't that far away, but like midway through the second half, all I remember was just the murmurings across the crowd. And it was just like almost a sense of embarrassment. But to be fair, like Tipperary, you know, would have felt something similar a couple of weeks ago, because you're in that stadium and you know that the game is just totally a dead duck at that stage. Then fast forward to 2023. To be fair to Cork, season's on the line, and they were within a point, and, you know, a refereeing decision goes this way and that way, and who knows what happens. So if you look at the Cork team from last year, and there have been a few changes, I was just looking it up there, and I'll read out the team from last year, and I might actually, if I can find it quickly, I might put up the team that we've already announced that's going to be playing this week. Okay, so the team that's on your screens is the team that's playing on Saturday evening. But the team that played last year, just to show the contrast, it was Patrick Collins, Niall O'Leary, Damien Cahalane, Sean O'Donoghue, Ger Millerick, Kieran Joyce, Robert Downey, Brian Roach, Luke Meade, and then Tim O'Mahony, Darragh Fitzgibbon, Declan Dalton, Shane Kingston, Patrick Horgan, Seamus Harney. It's actually kind of changed an awful lot in the space of a year. But if that team got within a point, Michael, can you make a case for this team going just as close?
Yeah, I did say that Limerick, I didn't think Limerick were absolutely lighting it up at the minute, but Limerick were nearly on their last legs in that game last year. That, I would say, that result turned around their whole year. All of a sudden, they ended up in a Munster final. Whereas you'd say, you wouldn't say the shoe is on the other foot, but like Cork are the ones kind of playing for their season now, whereas Limerick are in a decent spot. I think it's all kind of relative to like we're talking about Cork's defence being open, and then you're talking like they conceded 326, and now Kieran Joyce isn't playing, and they conceded 225 the first time. Now he's not playing. Like, you telling me their defence is going to get better as a result of him being out? Most definitely not. So while personnel, like there have been a couple of personnel changes, but like Damien Cahalane started the first game of the year. It's not as if this is some big change or anything. He got sent off, and he only came on the tail end of the game the last day. Brian Roach, I believe, is injured as well. Most of the changes are in force. It's not because we said we're going to go with this lad at 3, this lad at 6, this lad at 8, 9, 11, or whatever it is. And as one of the commenters there said, like Tim O'Mahony is a forward until he's a wing back. You know what I mean? Mark Coleman's a midfielder until he's a wing back again. I do expect him to deliver a big display, but there's just so many question marks about them, lads. Maybe it'll all click, but like, Jay-Z, if you're a punter or a gambler or something like that, you'd be taking some step into the unknown, having any faith in Cork realistically to get over the line.
Just in terms of matchups then, Sean O'Donoghue against Aaron Gillane, you'd imagine that one's going to happen. You'd look forward to that. I think Tim O'Mahony did as well as somebody can do under that amount of high ball against Peter Duggan. And, you know, he was looking to lower the blade to try and spoil, and didn't always work. But
I don't know about that, Shane, either. Like, as well as anybody could do, if those amount of puckouts have been put down on top of him and Dermot Burns would have caught a few of them. He would have tipped them down. I just thought some of that was very naive. And he was pulling wild even.
The first week, you had Duggan catching ball over both Kyle Hayes and against Dermot Burns. So let's not act now as if all of a sudden Limerick are able to spoil every high ball.
But did Duggan have the same impact on the game against Limerick as he did on the game against Cork?
Well, maybe when he comes down with a ball against Cork, you don't have other defenders coming in to help, whereas against Limerick, you can be damn sure you do.
Well, but it's another thing. This is another thing, and it was always a big. You know, when you were in college, there was a big difference between Cork hurlers and lads that came down from Kilkenny and Tip, especially. the difference in Cork lads in the air, like it was up and bat, everyone up and bat, up and bat, up and bat, and it just this is the thing. Who are their ball winners now? Yeah, they love batting the ball, but and even Christy Ring apparently said to the records back in the day, that's not hurling by when they were catching the ball in the air, but Downey, sorry, a full back is one of the only lads there where you'd kind of say brilliant in the air. Remember, he caught a few in the league game against Kilkenny. I thought he was very good that night. But other than that, I mean, who are the real great ball runners? Like if you were Hegarty there, you'd be begging Leaky Quaid to bomb him down top of you, I think.
Yeah, and that could end up be the way. So let's put our necks on the block. 3 Limerick wins here. I presume that's what we're going for.
Yeah. I do think it'll be very tight. I think it will be tight and it'll be really high scoring. But I just can't see anything bar a Limerick win. Listen, for the championship's sake, a Cork win would be unbelievable. And it would just
typical of this championship.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant. It'd be brilliant because Leinster's nearly more unpredictable than Munster at this stage. That would really put the cat amongst the pigeons. Cork get a win or on 2 points, then Tipper playing Cork, then Limerick still have to get more points on the board. Waterford could go out with 3. Like it would spice it up even more now.
What about the Leinster Championship then? We'll come to Kilkenny against Carlow in a while, but there has been a lot of surprise results, obviously. Antrim beating Wexford, nobody really saw that coming, certainly outside of Antrim, and I don't even know if too many within saw that coming. And then the way Wexford beat Galway, like, fair enough, they beat them, that's not a total shock, but how they performed was just class. Now, can Antrim come down to Parnell Park, Nisha, and just completely throw this thing wide open and get a win over the Dubs, who, the Dubs are in a decent spot at the moment, watching some of the other contenders for probably the 3rd spot or whatever, taking points off each other. What are you thinking here?
I think this could be a right game. This could be absolutely class because the matchups, these games are usually always really, really close. There's always less than a goal in between the teams. It comes down to some brutal mistake or a draw, where, like, say last year there, Donald Burke mishits a free and Keane O'Sullivan buries the ball in the goal and it ends up in a draw, and you're going, God, there's one Antrim threw away, but because it usually favours the home team. So because Dublin are at home, you'd be kind of going, okay, right, you'd expect Dublin to win by a couple of points, but I'd say there's some pep in Antrim step after beating Wexford at home, and they obviously targeted the Wexford game, and everyone keeps saying that because you can't just get slaughtered by Kilkenny and then turn around and be like, hey, look at this, we're 7 points down against Wexford and then we win by 2. And I would say this is another game they have targeted because there's not that much between them. And if Dublin go with the team that was the starting team named against Carlow, I think Antrim have a great chance to win this game. I actually think Antrim have a great chance to win if that's the team Dublin go with. I know it's been a couple of weeks, so maybe there'll be a few changes, but it'll be interesting to see.
O'Donnell played at 11 that day, Nisha, by all accounts.
Yeah, so that's different. I have been saying for ages I'd love to see him out in the half back line, and he was named at 7, but yeah, playing the forwards, and I know he played in the forwards in the league, and Shane will take credit for converting him to a forward there in Whitehall. But I, just from my own point of view and from a Dublin hurling point of view, I would actually prefer to see him maybe at 6 and try it there, because he'll always, the way he plays, he'll always put pressure then on the forward to mark him. Similar to like, let's say Paddy Burke there with Antrim, right? If you're playing corner forward, I would hate to be marking him, because you have to mark him, because he can end up at the end of a score. He's going to put pressure on someone going the other direction. So it'll be interesting to see who from Dublin is going to be on Paddy Burke, because I just think, with Keelan Malloy coming back, I know he's probably not 100% fit, obviously, but he adds a lot to the team. Cunning inside, McCann inside as well, Niall McKenna. I just think, and for anyone that's mispronouncing his name the whole time there, like I heard a million times, it's James McNaughton, right? Not McNaughton. It's McNaughton.
Who the hell says McNaughton?
It was said on GA Go 100 times.
Sambo McNaughton.
Yeah, it was said 100 times, and I knew by them. I was like, these lads don't know these players from Adam, right? McNaughton. I think as well then, right? depending who Dublin have midfield again, I actually think on paper Antrim might have a better one. So this could be a right game, and unfortunately, then no one's going to get to see it.
Stop, will you?
That is the thing. Like, okay, let's look at some of the results in the last couple of years. So last year, Antrim won 19, Dublin won 19. So if I remember correctly, Dublin got a late goal there to
that was the miss-hit free, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, and we'll just forget the other results just for now. But in recent times, but okay, Dublin last year they got a goal when they needed one late on. Against Galway, pretty sure they got scores late on when they needed them. Against Wexford this year, got 2 goals late on when they absolutely needed to. Carlow this year got a goal, turned it from, I think they were 4 down to win them by 5. So, Michael, we can make a fair case here that the perennially understated or undervalued Dublin team, they mightn't have 1,000,001 brilliant forwards there, and they mightn't be cutting teams apart, but they do not give up.
No, it's a great sign. They probably, listen, hurling is kind of funny. It's all structured for 65 minutes or so, and then it can kind of go out the window. By all accounts, like, they let a couple of balls into Paul Crummy, who has a hand, and they got a couple of goals. The last ball wasn't dealt with against Wexford at all. But it's a good sign of a resolve in a team. I just think this one is set up perfect for Dublin, honestly, to win by 5 or 6, genuinely. All the pressure, like the thing about Antrim were beaten by 32 the last day, or against Kilkenny. They produced this, like, it was poles apart the last day. Now the pressure is actually on them. They're not 9-1 underdogs coming into this game. There's a bit of pressure on them. There's an expectancy now. It's not, oh, we have a free shot at this. It's like, if we win, we have a great chance of getting the 3rd spot in Leinster, which no one was predicting beforehand. All of a sudden, there's a bit of pressure on their shoulders. And it's a different position for them to be in, even historically. Like, Antrim have always, northern teams in general playing against other teams have always been underdogs, generally, and they've generally kind of thrived in that role. And every now and then they take down a big fish. I think Dublin are totally forewarned for this game, and they got a result against Wexford. They would have got a decent hop from that. They finished strongly against Carlow. And I honestly just think they'll always have Antrim at arm's length in this game. And the game I go back to is the 2021 game, I think, where I half fancied Antrim to have a sniff, and Dublin absolutely obliterated them in Park Tailteann. The last thing I'll ever do is listen to you. Even if it involves losing money, I will go against you most of the time. But the O'Donnell one's going to be interesting. I don't know. I don't think that will work against probably Kilkenny, and maybe not against Galway, but it could work against Antrim, and he could snipe 3 or 4 from play. I believe he was rusty enough early doors, and he clipped over a couple of lovely points by the end. One particularly good point at the very end. So it's the sort of game where he might be able to snipe 3 or 4, and it might work. I don't think it'll work in other games though. But no, I expect Dublin to win probably by 5 or 6 in the wind-up.
Yeah, I think he could do it. But he needs to be training consistently and playing in that position over and over and over and over. Because, like I've said before, when you're playing fullback and you have his athleticism, you can almost wait to see where the ball is going to be played, accelerate past your man, nudge him, pick up the break, and you're going to do that in space. Whereas if you try and do that as a full forward, play the same way, the nudge and get on the break, there's going to be too many lads around you. And that's the same if you're playing the half forward line. So he has to be playing in that position enough, or preparing in that position enough, so that the touch is instant. And that's the only thing holding him back playing in those positions. Because if he got the ball running at goals 45 yards out or whatever, it's lights out for the opposition. It's just that initial.
Yeah, I'd imagine if he's at 11, maybe the pressure on your touch is a small bit less, and it's probably going to be more likely to hand if he comes out, or if he comes into that kind of pocket out around the middle of the field. Potentially, you can get the ball, potentially strike from distance, but also maybe run at pace and try and go down the centre channel. Whereas if he's inside, sure, boys, Inisha, you've definitely played inside at different stages. Like, if your touch is not at a premium, you're gone. You've got one chance to get into your hand. If you don't take it in your hand straight away, and then it's gone. But just on Nisha's point about the game not being televised as well, I understand that they have to, like, it's a scheduling thing or whatever, that they announce the games, well in advance. But surely like your thought process changes. When Antrim beat Wexford, surely the thought process changes and you're able to make the move and say, well, Dublin haven't been on GA Go yet at all. They haven't had a game aired yet this year. And now we have one of the biggest games of the year. And with due respect to Carlow and Kilkenny, like the last time they met in the round robin, Kilkenny won very comprehensively. And I know they're neighbours and there's a bit of a rival. I wouldn't even say it's rivalry. They're just neighbours, really. But like, which game is the neutral going to want to see? They're going to want to see Dublin Antrim every day of the week.
But like, we're solely putting this at the feet of at GA and not RT. RT bought a package. It's 31 games. They have to show provincial finals. So some of the games that we're not seeing in the Munster and Leinster championships, for example, that's down to RTE and the constraints they put on the packages, and then their joint venture with the GA Go, which is GA Go with the GA and RT. I mean, again, surely this is down to the GA, Nisha, to make sure. And like, you're involved with TG Carr for an awful lot of games there. But surely this is down to themselves. They're shooting themselves in the foot. And like, people talk about, oh, we don't have the product, winning hearts and minds because of the split season and all of that. Well, look, right here, right now, there's unbelievable games going on. And you, the GA, are shooting yourself in the foot and making sure that enough people aren't seeing it.
Yeah, it's a cash cow basically, like, because you've gone from what the ethos is supposed to be about, and I'm sick to the back teeth of hearing people talk about promoting hurling, promoting this and promoting that, and two counties where hurling is probably needed promotion as much as any, Antrim versus Dublin, in one of the biggest championship games of the year and of the last couple of years in the Leinster Championship, in what has been the probably most exciting round robin Leinster Championship there has been in a couple of years, and it's not been shown. And like that, I see on RTE there's some documentary about Hitler on at the same time or something, and you're kind of going,
well, it would be interesting now. To be fair, Nisha, I don't want you doing that.
Look at. I'm as much into history as the next lad, but Hitler has come and gone. I want to see what's going to go on between Antrim and Dublin. He's had his days. He came and went. I want to know.
There's only one hitch that matters, Nisha, and that's hurling. Hurling. Get out and hurl, as I say. But look, it's just it's extremely frustrating. I know Micheál O'Donnell was on talking on it here about it a while ago as well. That like TG Carr and Lemeton or whoever have asked about it, and just for whatever reason it's been refused. You look into that whatever way you want, or because why do we with TG Carr, let's say, get to show the club championships, the league, the under-20s and the minors, but then not get to show the Joe McDonagh or just this type of a match? It would just be perfect. Like, it's set up perfectly. Like, it just annoys me so much how little hurling we actually get to see on TV. And then people go, it is on TV, it's on GA Go. Yeah, but not everybody has GA Go. Like, I don't have GA Go.
The quality isn't always great. Sometimes the streaming it lets you down a little bit because it's a little bit grainy or whatever.
Boys, you're talking about promotion of hurling as well. I was at the Tailteann Cup launch on Tuesday. 16 players up for interview, and the New York fella was up for interview as well. There was no launch of the Joe McDonagh, no launch of the Ring Rackard or Mar either. Like, and just even the fact that I cannot get over what we're doing with hurling at the minute, boys. I can't. Like, my mother and father barely know there's a hurling championship going on, because there's a generation of people that if it's not on the telly, it's not on. And they wouldn't know how to get GA Go.
Oh.
And they wouldn't know what to do. And the broadband would be wrong, and there'd be something, and it'd be a disaster. And I'd be
if you have broadband.
If you have broadband. Like, I know people that were down in Wexford and Waterford last weekend, tried to tune into the game, no go, just frustrating. And there's nothing worse than watching something when it's jumping or it's pausing or something like that. Like, I watched the TG Carter stream of the Offaly 20 match last night, and it was like delish, start to finish. There's not one problem. But with most streaming services, and even with GA Go, as good as, like, and I think it's a very good product when you can see it and hear it and see what's going on, but you're not guaranteed to get it in certain parts of the country. We're doing the game some disservice by not having any hurling on telly last week or this week. In the height, lads, when we get past the provincials, we'll have 2 preliminary quarterfinals, 2 quarterfinals, 2 semi-finals, and a final, and that's that. That's all. Like, we are in the height of the hurling championship in a minute. And like, I know, like, people, and you're dubbed like hurling man or something for having an opinion on hurling or having a passion for hurling, but there has to be one live hurling game televised every weekend if there's hurling championship on.
they're just, that is just the way it should be. There should just be at least one live game of hurling, one live game of Gaelic football every Saturday and every Sunday, I think, on RT or on just terrestrial television, be it TG4 or whatever it is. And then maybe you give one then to GA Go or whatever. But every time you turn on the telly or turn on the radio, there's 3 different broadcasts of the same rugby match. And you'd go like, if an alien landed in Ireland, he'd think we all played rugby. And again, right, look, it is an anti-rugby thing. I don't care. Not that many people play it, and people proclaim to love it. No, you don't love it. You love going to the pub and watching it with your friends. But there's far more people are involved in GA clubs, but then we're getting starved of seeing what we are basically donating our lives to. That you're, volunteering your entire life, all your free time, to being in a hurling club, to being in a or Gaelic football club, whatever, paying your membership, paying this, paying that, and hurling is as good or better than it's ever been, and we don't get to see half it. It's crazy. I just think it's crazy. But
and then you look at like UNESCO height. It's an intangible cultural heritage section here. Like hurling is protected here, and you just wonder, like, the GA, who are the custodians of it, like, are they doing enough themselves? 82,000 people at Croke Park see Leinster play rugby. More power to them. Fair play to you. But, like, what are we doing to make sure that that's happening on a more regular basis, or just basically that hundreds of thousands can see it on telly?
As Tom Dempsey said, they did more to promote that than they did to promote the hurling matches at the weekend. Like, it was just mad. Or videos of the English rugby team, whoever they were, pucking around.
Here now, that really annoyed me, because you two both togged out for club finals in Croke Park, where you were probably there the week before and weren't let bring your hurls even onto the pitch, or go out before and you can't bring your hurls out to the pitch, and the boys can puck around, pricking around the day before with hurls on the pitch, just so someone could get a couple of decent pictures and put it out. Look at these boys playing hurling in Croke Park. Stop, will you? Stop.
Look at these lads playing hurling in Croke Park. Isn't hurling great? It's so great we keep it hidden from everybody.
Yeah,
and then when foreigners,
well, you saw the clips going around of the time TJ was in Croke Park with the boys in the overlap. So Gary Neville, Roy Keane and the boys are allowed to puck around in Croke Park, but we're not allowed to puck around in Croke Park. Stop now.
Hey, look, Bernie, just in terms, you mentioned the Offaly minors there, and they're putting up a savage score on Laois at the moment. Does this feed into the notion that you are building and you're continuing to come, or were Laois that disappointing?
No, Laois were probably poor now last night, but they didn't know how way to look. After 10 minutes, the game was gone from them. Like, it was 8 points to 1. We'd 5 points scored, lads, in 3 minutes, I think. And Laois, it's funny, Laois were trying to put some puck outs through the eye of a needle from the very start, and 2 of them were turned over and put back over with interest. And like, I was actually a small bit worried about that game going into it last night. I was just thinking, if we don't get off to a good start, we leave these lads in it. Like, they played in a minor final only 2 years. You covered it, Laois. Like, Laois had plenty of good players at that grade. But no, it was real. There's just the real thing that excites Offaly people is there's just a different mentality around that group. And when most groups would have sensed there might be a bit of complacency or whatever, like, no way. It was just on point from the very start. They'd won 18 put up by half time. They had Laois put to the, or 18 points, I should say. They'd Laois put to the sword within 15 minutes, and it was real comprehensive. And that's taken into account as well that Dan Ravenhill's out for the rest of the year at county level with a hamstring injury. So he's gone from the seniors and the 20s. So he's going to be a massive, massive loss. But they have just plenty of other lads that can come in and work around. And even, boys, the crowd that was there last night on a Wednesday night, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock throw-in. It's just a massive, massive buy-in behind that group. And not too sure if the draw is made for the semi-final yet. There was an interesting one, boys, in the Dublin one as well. Rory Jacob being involved with Dublin and beating his own Wexford side that he was involved with the year before. I'd say that was fairly bittersweet now too. But Offaly, there's definitely something brewing, Shano, and there's such a buy-in behind that group because they just look and act a bit different.
Yeah, sorry, I said minors. I obviously meant 20s.
The 20s,
It's going to be Galway against Dublin in their semi-finals. So that draw has been made, which will mean Offaly against Kilkenny. Nisha, in terms of your own county, Kilkenny, and I know obviously you've done a tour of the country, living everywhere at this stage, but all joking aside, are you liking what you're seeing from Kilkenny at minor and 20 level, or have you seen that much in the last while?
Yeah, sure. I did a couple of their games last year with the minors, and they've a few nice, they've a few nice players, and then obviously the under 20s they won the All Ireland, but a couple of years ago. And you think about that 20s team that won the All Ireland, it was probably more down to them being a strong team where there wasn't really too many superstars. It was Tallis was brilliant in goal, as I'd say in ice hockey, like he stood in his head. He was absolutely class. And then Billy Drennan was just electric on the freeze. Like I
What
think
does
they
that
won
mean,
three.
Nisha, to say stood in her head? What does that mean?
He just did everything possible. He just stood the goalie. They always say that the goalie. He stood in his head. It just he did everything possible to keep the ball out of the net. Like he was brilliant that year. And then Billy Drennan was scoring, 115 and 17 points and whatever. But they won. I think they won 3 matches by a point to win the under 20s All Ireland that year. They won they beat Galway by a point, they beat Wexford by a point, and then they beat Limerick by a point to win. So it was more down to them being a really solid team because there aren't many of them pushing on like superstars, let's say, when back the early 2000s, there was a crop of really classy minor and under 21 teams coming through with Richie Power, Michael Rice, John Dalton, Tennyson, Owen Guinan and Jeff Fitzpatrick, all these lads that kind of came through that were brilliant and ended up doing it with seniors or whatever. But, you know, it's probably not the same level of skill or talent, and they are lagging behind Offaly at the minute. Like that I love that Offaly team, and I'm doing that. I'm doing that game next Wednesday night. Offaly Kilkenny semi-final in Tullamore. Should be class because any day you can go and look at Screeney play hurling, like it's well worth it. It's well worth it, and I'm
Did you see the
imagining
crew?
it'll
Did you
be
see the
packed.
crew of young lads and young ones coming on to
Uh,
him on the pitch after? It's mad. Like I think he wanted to get out of Dodge fairly quickly as well because he probably need to get back down the road to college or something like that. But it's mad. Like it's multiplying every day you see it.
It's nuts. It's David Clifford-esque at hurling underage level. But Nisha, with Carlo coming up next this weekend for Kilkenny, and given how well Kilkenny performed in what did feel like shadow boxing in the draw against Galway, like are some of those under-20s beginning to step up? Like, are we going to see a little bit more of, for example, Garrod Dunn? Maybe is Billy Drennan going to get in there eventually? Like Shane Murphy has really staked claim this season. Like, or is it going to continue to be the same players? I'm not saying they haven't been, like they've obviously been getting to All Ireland finals, but are any of those lads going to break in? Timmy Clifford.
I really like Shane Murphy. And Billy Drennan was kind of fairly hampered all this year with an injury. He didn't even play much in the Fitzgibbon, and then the league final where you were kind of thinking, right, this is your chance now. TJ's gone, step in here now and do it. And he was taken off. He wasn't great. He even missed a couple of frees, which he never usually does. Other than that, like to be honest, I don't think so. I can't like, and it's no disrespect. Garrod Dunn maybe eventually, but not yet. I still think like he's behind a couple of lads who have been around the block. And again, it is a big jump from being 19 or 20 to then hurling, trying to take the place of someone who's 27, 28, 29, men who have been around the block and who are physically just far more developed. Because like a lot of them lads, like it was kind of funny, like a lot of them under 20s that won that All Ireland with Kilkenny, there was a good few of them playing with Kieran's the same year. So you're kind of because of the age difference changing and all. Like Timmy Clifford gets put on a lot, but I don't think I couldn't see him nailing down a starting position or anything. It just anyway. Look, no, I just don't think so. Not yet.
Yeah, do you like because of the amount of Carlow teams that play in Kilkenny Club Championships? I think if you go on the official website, and I was chatting to Nicky Brennan about this, he was pointing out that there's 17 Carlow clubs that play in the juvenile hurling leagues, and then there's the all-county hurling, all-county junior hurling league, where a lot of Carlow teams also compete. So I presume there isn't sort of like a rivalry per se, as more so a big brother, little brother sort of vibe. Nisha, is that fair? Harsh? What?
So it depends. It probably depends. If you live down like of Paulstown and play with Barrow Rangers or somebody, I'd say you wouldn't have any time for them. But where I'm from, it was one of them things. We were more concerned with Tipperary or Laois, and like it was always a funny one. Like we've cousins from Waterford, like, but where I'm from, like, I would have never considered Waterford a rival. But Waterford people obviously hate Kilkenny, like. But no, I would never had any animosity to Carlow. I would have been always, we played against a good few Carlow teams in them leagues and in them competitions, and I would have always been kind of hoping that they'd get stronger and keep getting stronger. Um, so no, that I wouldn't consider them a huge rival really at all.
Even the Mouse Kavanagh was at the Leinster launch in 2019, and he was brought to support Kilkenny as a youngster. Like, and I'm sure there would have been plenty of Carlow lads like that, because maybe Carlow would have been out of a championship or potentially in a different championship. And when you're young and innocent, you might go and support your neighbours. When you get a bit older and a bit bitter, you definitely wouldn't. But just Nisha, quickly, I meant to say it to you when Shano asked you what the psyche would be like down in Cork. It immediately brought me back to, do you remember when we did the Allianz ad together and we all had the Cork jerseys on, and you were doing the big speech, and you had to do a speech, and like, it obviously wasn't going to be in the ad, it was just going to be pictures, but didn't you just go and put on the stupid Cork accent as well? And I was directly facing you, and I was bursting myself the whole way through.
It was the best performance Cork had that season, by it was the best performance they had. Yeah,
would you have believed 20 years ago that, you know, when they won the All-Ireland 2005, it was back-to-back, then all the talk next year was the Rebel treble that was going to happen. And, you know, Kilkenny beat them, but we were all surprised because Cork were so brilliant at the time that we're now, like, if they lose, it's 20 years without an All-Ireland title for Cork. Isn't that quite something when you think of where they came from?
Yeah, because, like, you know, they were top of the roll of honour, and it was such a big deal for Kilkenny to pass them out and all, and you kind of go like, oh, but even when Kilkenny started putting them ones in a row, Cork didn't really look like they were going to come back, because they were kind of hanging on, you know, because they had kind of revolutionised the game with their running style under Donald O'Grady and John Allen as well, and they were just so far ahead. I remember even when I was down there in college as well and playing with Shane O'Neill and Nash and Kevin Hartnett, and like how obsessed they were with preparation, and we were there like, what are you on about? Like, you know, like checking the colour of your piss, like, you know, making sure you're hydrated enough, and making sure you get. I remember one time asking Shane O'Neill, because he was mad into American football, was he going to watch the Super Bowl? And we had a Fitz game coming up, and he goes, no, I can't afford it. And like, Super Bowl was Sunday, Fitz match was Wednesday. And he says, no, I couldn't afford it. No. And I says, what do you mean afford it? We're not just watching in your house. And he says, no, I mean to sleep. He goes, I can't stay up for it. And I was like, God, that's mad. Like,
one of the benefits of college, like one of the good things.
Yeah, no, I was like, what are you on about? Like, lie in. Yeah. But anyway, like, it was just, they were so far ahead thinking wise, but then Kilkenny just found a way to beat them up and break down the game. And then they just never recovered. They just never recovered. And I know I heard Diarmuid O'Sullivan talking about this as well. It was brilliant on another podcast about the strikes and the effect the strikes had and stuff on them. And that probably just kicked them back a couple of years as well. And they haven't been able to produce, you know, even underage. You know, what have they won really? A lot. I know, like, obviously under 20s like last year and all, but like in that 20-year span, has they been winning a lot of minors or 21s or 20s All Irelands? Not really. So they're just, for whatever reason, they just, like I was saying earlier, they kind of went tunnel vision into this one particular way of playing, and maybe now they're starting to come out of it. And Ben O'Connor maybe is kind of leading the charge there a bit. So, but they need to change. They do need to change, and they just need new players. But it's easier said than done.
Just on your point, Nisha, like, you're producing too many of the same type of player.
Yeah,
you need you can't all be like 6 foot like athletes, like speed. You need maybe a 6'2" or 3 lad and half forward. You need like a pig in around the middle of the field that's going to get through a load of work rate, and it's going to complement somebody else. And they have too many lads that if you go through the squad and you start bunching lads together into certain categories of type of players that they are, a hell of a lot of lads will go into the same type of category, and they're the same type of player. They offer the same type of qualities to the team. Whereas you need loads of different types of players and loads of different options for today, for the next day, for the day after that. And it's like, I don't know if they've been coached to try and develop a certain type of player, but that's what it's kind of looks to me like it's resulted in now. They have a load of players on the squad that are very, very similar.
Yeah, and like it's kind of like in football terms, let's say when Donegal under Jim McGuinness came along with the blanket defence, and then everyone did the blanket defence, and football was awful for 10 or 12 years. Like there'd be games there to be unwatchable, club games or schools games or whatever. Everybody wants to play 12 men back and run back as soon as you lose possession, keep the score down, rather than let's try win the game in a different way. Like, it's similar kind of copycatting where, right, this is what won us, the All Irelands in the early 2000s. It works. So let's keep doing it. But it's like, yeah, but it hasn't worked now for 20 years. Like, look around you. Like, how have Waterford passed you out? How have Limerick passed you out? Kilkenny are still up at the top. How have Galway passed you out? Like, this kind of stuff. How have Wexford kind of passed you out too? Like, to a certain extent. What's going on? Like, how can you were kind of saying earlier, like this could be the second year in a row they don't come out of Munster. Like that's criminal for Cork. Like, traditionally, you couldn't. It's just great. You're just thinking about it. Like it's in a way because you're from Kilkenny and you were down in college in Cork or with these lads. In a way, it's kind of funny, but it's not either. It was funnier beating them in Croke Park in semi-finals and finals, like if you get me. But they just, I don't know, they have a lot of work to do. I just think they have a lot of work to do. And another lad, sorry, we didn't mention earlier that I can never really wrap my head around what goes on with him is Kingston. He's the type of lad I'd love to have in the forwards of my team. I just think personally, like I don't know what, he comes on in the game and he gets 1-4 and then he doesn't start the next day. And you're kind of going, well, what more does he have to do?
Consistency, isn't it? Like everyone in Cork, really. It's about the consistency. Because I wasn't on the show on Monday, and obviously, Nisha, you weren't on the show on Monday either. It might just reflect a small bit on Tipperary against Waterford because, everyone was lining up to write Tipperary off. I'm sure, Verney there had the bullets loaded for the Monday morning show when he saw Waterford going up by 4 later on.
I did not.
To be fair now, it was a decent, like, you look at Tipperary throughout that game, and Tipper are a very flawed team. Okay, they're not a flowing team. But every time Waterford got a goal, Tipperary had a response. 4 points down in injury time, had a response. However the season pans out, there's some, assuming that they build on it in the next 2 games, irrespective of, how far Tipperary go, there's the kernel of something there in terms of how they dug out a point.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, Shane, now that it's irrespective of how the next 2 games go. The next 2 games have to go in a similar vein as last Saturday night. If they veer back towards the first day, you're in big bother. But the one thing that I really liked the other night was just, even at the end, how calm they were to work the free at the end. Like, to me, like Bonner could have had a shot. There was maybe 2 other lads could have had a shot. They were real low percentage shots. They worked it and tried to work it into a position where they could force a free, and they did. And even just the fact that it was 28 scores to 24, and for the vast majority of the game, Tip had 5 or 6 more scores on the board, albeit points compared to Watford's goals. And you were looking at even some of the personnel. I just, like, for someone like Mark Keogh, it was important for him to step up and take a game by the scruff of the neck, which he did. And there was a couple of other lads probably like him as well, even Shawnee Keneally coming in and getting 1-1, albeit he was obviously just to the edge of the square for the goal or whatever. But they easily could have thrown in the towel near the very end. And there are various times during the game potentially where they could have thrown in the towel and they didn't. But it's just like, and I throw it to you, Nisha, like they have to build on that. That mightn't necessarily be a victory, or it could be 2 defeats, but it'll have to be 2 defeats going down in an absolute blaze of glory.
Yeah, and sure, to use one of Shane's favourite rugby terms, wasn't it great to see Tipperary get to the emotional pitch of a game, wasn't it? But look, like it was a funny one because like the Tip goal, could have been a square ball, it could have been disallowed. Owens running in front of the goalie for the penalty. One of probably the craziest thing I've ever seen in the match, right? Just weird. Then on the Waterford side, Desi probably missed chances that he'd never usually miss. But yeah, like a draw. they couldn't basically like Michael McIntyre. Geez, John McIntyre kind of said it like if you have anything in you as a team or as a hurler, as a player, when you put up a performance like you did against Limerick, and you go into a match the following weekend, and then obviously it's Liam Cahill going into Welsh Park against Waterford as well. If there was anything ever going to be in you, you had to at least put up a performance, right? They did, and coming back like they did, it obviously shows kind of similar to what you were saying earlier about Dublin, Shane, as well, right? Okay, they mightn't be going to win the All-Ireland, but at least there's something in them that they're going to be in the games and that they're not going to give up. They're not going to throw in the towel. But I think the draw kind of was a funny one. Like I was on a Ballygunner stag in a beat at the weekend, and everybody left the pool party to go and watch it in an Irish bar. And you kind of go like, some of the talk was, one of the lads says, "Do you think Waterford could get beaten by 10 points here?" And where did that come from? But it's just the way the championship is going, and then the draw kind of blows it up a bit, and a lot of it will come down to obviously like how are Waterford now. John McIntyre is kind of talking about this on Monday as well. Will that be viewed now as a point lost for Waterford, because are they going to get anything out of Limerick and Clare? I actually think I think that Limerick, who knows, right? But I think the Clare and Waterford game could be just one of the best games you'll ever see, because of obviously the storylines in the background. But a fully fit Waterford, I think on paper, a fully fit Waterford are as good or better than Clare.
And a fully fit Waterford going at Clare and not playing that rubbish they were playing last year when they played them. Or
in the league.
Yeah,
I did a couple of their games in the league. They were borderline unwatchable in the league. Now thankfully they've looked to have moved away from that. But yeah, a fully fit Caleb Lyons, class to watch. Jamie Barron, same. Tyke Borka, same. Jack Fagan, same. They're just, Stephen Bennett obviously is still coming back from that horrible injury and the surgery and everything, and maybe, who knows, this could be his last year playing with Waterford. And Desi in top form as well. Just I think, I think they could give Clare loads.
Okay, well, look, Nisha, thanks very much for your time today, and enjoy the weather and the hurling over the weekend, the bit that you'll actually get to see that's being aired.
I'll be busy training children, sure, yeah. Right, sound dads, good luck. Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay, delighted to say we've got Cian Johnson on the line here to talk a bit of football with us. Cian, how are things?
All good, lads. I'm liking these late throw-ins.
Yeah, for sure. Come here, what do you like? Can you make any case for Louth against Dublin this weekend, or is it just going to be a bit of a paddling?
I think it's hard to. I suppose the one thing that Louth have over maybe a lot of the other Leinster counties, and probably why they're the second best team in Leinster, is their conditioning is probably at a higher level than the rest. And I even think back to, we played Louth in 2021 maybe. It was Mickey Hart's first year. I was in Navan and we won after extra time. But I remember an interview he done after the game, and he was kind of, the interviewer was asking him, like, what's the story for next year or whatever, and he was saying, like, we're starting next week, like we're not sending them back to clubs for conditioning, like they're staying on this program. And I suppose you might say, like, sure, it's in every county doing that, but like you'd be surprised when you slip down the divisions, like when lads go back to their club. It's very easy to ease off on the gym work, especially during the summer, like, because when the evenings are long and the weather's good, pitches are hard, nobody wants to be in the gym, like everyone wants to be out in the field. So I think Louth definitely from that perspective have got a steal on the other counties, and look, that gives them a starting point at least that they'll be able to go the distance with Dublin. But yeah, I don't know, I suppose Ger Brennan will know them better than anyone, but I think Louth can learn a bit from Clare last weekend on maybe how to go about it, because I think Clare got a really good balance between not going for it gung-ho and not sitting back, because they went long on every kick out, Clare did, and like I'd be a big advocate for that, for an underdog against a big team, because like you're putting yourself under unnecessary pressure going short and trying to work it out and getting turned over. So I would say for Louth, just get it out there, and at least if it goes 60 yards and you lose it, at least you're set. You have 12 or 13 bodies behind the ball, and if you win it, then you have a chance on the other side. And then even going after Dublin's kick out, like Clare last week, they only press Kerry off a free when they had time to press up and actually go after it. Whereas, yourself, like if you're trying to press from normal play, like lads are scrambled all over the place, you're tired, and then you have 3 or 4 bodies out of the game. So I think Louth can maybe take a few things from Clare last weekend for their approach.
Yeah, you have to pick your battles, Keane, don't you? Like, you know, like you're not going to be able to work kickouts, short kickouts the whole way through game, physically, energy wise as well. Plus, there's the fact that one big turnover at a stage in a game, and you could just be completely on the back foot as well, couldn't you?
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely, yeah. And like, I think Louth last year, maybe after 20 minutes, we're actually going okay, and then the goals started raining in. And I think even for teams like the gap this year, like, so say it was a Sligo lost to Galway by 14 last year, and then this year it only lost by 2. Clare lost to Kerry by 14 last year. This year lost by 7. Conceded 5 goals last year. Didn't concede a goal this year. So I think for Louth, you know, can they bridge that gap? They lost by 21 points last year. Like, they actually kicked 15 themselves, but they just conceded 5 goals. So yeah, look, it's a difficult one. Like what you're going to learn about Dublin, probably not much. Like, Paddy Small didn't play the last day. Brian Howard didn't. Sean Bugler didn't. Cormac Costello's come back from an injury. So, like, you know, I suppose that's their motivation. It's the internal competition. Like, they don't care about Louth or if they're 10 points up. You know, they just want to play the next day. So, look, it is a difficult one. I think Sam Mulroy has been really quiet from play the last few days. I think Louth definitely need more out of him from open play. He was a savage free taker, but you know, they need him contributing more if they're gonna be competitive. Kieran Downey's been in really good form, seriously underrated player. Ryan Burns as well inside. Tommy Dernan is a big man in midfield, moving well. And I think Louth are a really well coached team. Even from the last day, Michael, I know you were at the Kildare Louth game, but like, it seemed, I only seen the highlights, but it seemed from like just looking at the scores that Louth kind of had patterns of play going forward. Like, it seemed, you know, if they were running, there was always a lad coming at an angle, running towards the goal. Whereas Kildare, it was maybe more, you know, give it to Daniel Flynn, see what he can do. Give it to Dark Curran, see what he can do. It was maybe more kind of off the cuff stuff. Whereas Louth are actually kind of have a bit of a system going.
Yeah, your man Kieran Keenan is big to that. Kiki, I think they call him. They all speak unbelievably highly of him. He's not the sort of lad that puts up 1-4 or 1-5 or even usually actually doesn't score that much, but he sets up a hell of a lot of scores. Yeah, like, that's the one thing. I know they put 15 points last year. They do have a good forward line, and they do have like 3 or 4 lads there. Grimes is maybe more of kind of a Tyler or a worker, maybe out around the half line and out around the middle. But they do have 3 or 4 lads capable of getting more than 2 scores potentially on a given day. And it's funny you were saying about the Dubs there, not worrying about who they're playing against. Like, I'm always amazed by the handicapper in GA games, particularly the handicapper in like games where, you know, the winning margin would perceive to be maybe between 15 and 25 and how close they are. And I think it was 20 for the Offaly game. And I don't know if Colin Pascal had the handicap back or what. I'm sure he didn't. But he fist pumped. He fist pumped scoring a goal to put them 19 up in injury time. And I'm just thinking, obviously he didn't have the handicap back. But I'm just thinking, this is the mentality. Like, they don't care. What the score is irrelevant. It's all about what we're doing. And if we can win, I always said it to you, Shane, of it's like the great Kilkenny team, particularly if they could put 5 nails in your coffin, they'd put 6 or 7 if they got half a chance. And Dublin will take absolutely no pity on anyone, and they won't take any pity on Louth on Sunday if Louth aren't on point. But I would be expecting Louth to erode a fair bit into what the deficit was last year. It turned into a real, like, Louth actually played good football, and they might kick a point or 2 in a row, and then all of a sudden Dublin go down and the goals were raining in. I would expect it to be a lot tighter though.
Keane, in the Ulster final this weekend, Armagh against Donegal, you expect it to be a bruise, and you expect it to be, I suppose people will call it a chess match, and then some people will see it as an insult and some people will see that as a good thing. But at one point I want to go straight to is Ethan Rafferty is fit again. Now, would you drop Blaine Hughes and throw him straight in, or would you be thinking we'll keep him in reserve and see how the game plays out?
Yeah, I think keep him in reserve. I think it'd be really hard to drop Blaine Hughes. He was actually a really good goalie to start off before Rafferty came in doing the fly goalie. But yeah, probably you'd leave him just maybe if when the game opens up, and then you bring him in. But I don't know. Like, I don't see this being a classic, to be honest. I think the crowd will be massive. Armagh fans are always travel. Everyone will be up for it. I think there'll be a real buzz for the parade and that. But I think it'll quickly evaporate when the ball's thrown in and there's 15 behind them.
The amount of class on the field, the amount of like really, really good players, and I suppose you can add a few names in here, but like Rian O'Neill, I mean, kickers like Kieran Thompson. I mean, obviously you've got Merlin, you've got Rory Green.
Yeah,
like there's between both teams, Keane, there's a lot of really classy players, and the managers are going to conspire to just drag any class out of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think like Tyrone probably set a template for Armagh of how to go about beating Donegal. Just not giving them that long kick out and not turning over the ball. And Armagh conceded 2 goals against Down the last day from turning it over and letting Down quickly transition up the pitch. And like that's exactly what you don't want to do against Donegal. So I'd imagine their training the last 2 weeks has just been minding the ball. If it takes 3 minutes to get a good shot away, it takes 3 minutes and put it dead. And then, like, I'd be really interested to see what Armagh do off the kickouts. Like that'll indicate straight away what they want. If they press the kickouts, it's like, right, Armagh are going for it. If they come off, it's going to be 14 or 15 points to probably win the game. You can go out and walk the dog for the first half and come back for the last 20 minutes. Like that's the reality of it. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what you think about this, right? So I was listening to Paddy Burns, the Armagh cornerback, after the last game, and like it was put to him that like Armagh, when they play the top teams, they come back into their shell a bit, and maybe they're kind of, when they play smaller teams, they go all out, press kickouts, and go after teams. And he was saying that they're never sent out to do that. He was saying that any time that they maybe go back into their shell, that's purely off the players. If it's fear of it's, they're afraid to lose or whatever. And I don't know, like, I completely understand he's not going to throw the manager under the bus, like, in mid-season. But I suppose, like, I've been in team meetings, and I presume the two of you have as well, where, you're maybe saying something like kickouts, like, you go here, I go there, it's great, like, go out in the training field, you do it. But, come to match day, lads get tired, you're losing by a few points, it quickly goes out the window. So I don't know, maybe sometimes you can point to management teams maybe too quickly, that sometimes the players can just maybe not do what they're instructed. But like, Kieran McGeeney's been there 10 years, so I don't really know if it stands up in this case. But
like, if you're going to rep something over and over in training, so that this is what we lean on when things get tough, or this is what everyone has agreed is the pattern, like if we can see 3 scores in a row, this is what we're going to do if we can see the goal. I'm not buying it, Michael, are you?
No, I'm not buying it. I think it's he did mention fear, which I think does come into it a bit, because like I watched them in the Division 2 league final, and there was a title there for them to win, and they didn't seem to have an interest in playing that. They definitely didn't have an interest in playing as they'd played in the 7 games before that, when they'd put up big scores. So I don't know if it's I think it could be, maybe there might be a small bit of fear from players, probably a small bit of fear from management as well, because the end line or the finishing line is there, and they have not kicked on and pushed on to try and get over it the last couple of years. And like, it would be a fairly like, the grief would be fairly unimaginable if they suffer, a third final defeat. It'd be a third final defeat in a row, wouldn't it be? And like, imagine if it ends up on penalties or something again. But I would agree with what Keane said. I do think it's going to be that kind of arm wrestle of a game. And it'll probably get pretty exciting around the hour mark when somebody has to actually go and win the game. I can't see beyond Donegal winning this game, lads, to be honest with you. If you're talking about know-how in this type of scenario, and McGuinness obviously won the Division 2 title already this year with a skeleton team in Croke Park when they beat Armagh. I just think that I think that this is huge for them. If this is the only thing Donegal do this year, if they win an Ulster title, imagine at the end of the year they say, boys, look where we came from to where we are now, winning Ulster. Maybe they'll be beaten in an All-Ireland quarter-final or something or whatever, but look at what they'll be able to build for next year and the year after. And I just think there's plenty of know-how in that dressing room, how to get over the line in this type of scenario. And I just think there'll be I know it's pretty simplistic, but I probably think there'll be a bit more belief when the finishing line is there as well, and I think they'll probably see it out a bit better.
Yeah, put your neck on the block, Keane. Who's going to win it?
yeah, I'd be Donegal as well. But I've seen so many previews this week that have people that are just saying that they feel that it's Armagh's turn, like, and they've had so much bad luck that, like, I mean, sport doesn't work like that. Like,
tell Jimmy White it's his turn. He's like, losing in 6 more finals in a row.
Like, you look at Champions League last night, like, Manuel Neuer's best goalkeeper of his generation, like, he's on course for a man-to-match performance, made about 10 saves, and then he spills one ball, goal, 2 minutes later, another goal, he's out. Like, sport is cruel. Like, I mean, I think Donegal as well, and to be honest, I think if Armagh lose this, it's very hard to come back from, because, like, I think there's only so many times you can lift a team, like, from McGeeney's point of view. Like, what does he say to them if they can't beat Donegal 3 times in a row, like, in space of a couple of weeks? Like McGuinness is in his first year with Donegal. Like, if Donegal lose, they'll be fairly easy to lift. Like, he could say anything to them and they'll believe it. Like, so yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's like if anything, it's nearly PTSD. Like, if Armagh are coming down the stretch and a couple of points, like the trauma of the last few games, like that baggage can weigh heavy. Like, so yeah, I'd be thinking Donegal as well. And it's weird because Donegal are favourites for this game, but I think there's more pressure on Armagh. So yeah, I'd go for Donegal.
Okay,
Shano, would you just call it there? And would you have faith in Armagh coming down the home stretch in a final?
No, I definitely don't. And I think I think this would be a victory for negative football if the way Donegal have played so far. Maybe they'll shock us and play a different style of football, but I don't think any of us believe that. So I think that like the belief in what they're doing will be huge. And as they're trying to get over the end line, if this game is tight towards the end, they believe in their manager. Their manager will obviously have prepared them very well, and they've got a lot to believe in already based on how things have gone. I think they'll find a way over the line. And because Armagh have continually come up short and harshly with penalties a couple of times, thinking of Galway All-Ireland quarter-final a couple of years ago, there could be that small bit of white line fever that we've been here before. We've been really close, and they find a way to come up short. So, yeah, I think that. And you know what? It's annoying because, Keane, I actually like watching this Armagh team. Not all the time. I mean, they're involved in some shockers as well. But I kind of like some of their players. I'd like to see them. I'd like to feel like Armagh could kick on to another level, even though I'm not entirely sure if they will.
Yeah, and like that, like the forward line they have on paper, like should be putting up more scores. Like even that Division 2 final, they went like 25 minutes without getting a point, like, which is ridiculous. But
shocking.
Like Rian O'Neill was playing out the pitch the last day, and I think that's the place for him. Yeah, I think that's where he should play in general, and especially the next day, because there's no point being in the full forward line, like, because there's going to be no space. And it'd be interesting to see what Donegal do with him, because generally they don't like man marking players. They kind of stick to their zonal system. Now Brendan McCall did man mark Shane McGuigan the last day, and the man marked Derek Canavan. So maybe they will have to leave someone with him, even if he's out the pitch, because he can kick from distance. But yeah, I think the bench could be crucial as well. Like Jason Duffy, Aidan Nugent scored off the bench for Armagh the last day. And Paddy McBearty as well is an interesting one, because like he is coming towards the end of his career, and maybe he doesn't have the athleticism as the other players. He was taken off against Tyrone the last day at half time, and then he was brought back on in extra time and kicked the point. So I wonder, is it getting to the stage nearly where they're better off having him on the bench and not doing 90-meter runs up and down for 50 minutes and bringing him on for the last 20 when the game is scrambled to finish it out. So yeah, it's sad when a player like that is reduced to that, but it's getting close to that stage, I think.
Speaking of bringing lads on when the game opens up, is there any chance that Rafferty comes on as a keeper for the last 10-15 minutes? As in, just when they get, like, imagine how much of an asset he would be at that stage. I don't think he starts, but I wouldn't rule out him coming in, boys.
Yeah,
good man, Keno. You've got company there in the background.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'd say so. Like it would be a mad one though, wouldn't it? Like imagine a keeper getting warmed up on the sideline, like with the game. Game. Like, I mean, when do you see a keeper coming on, like, for like a tactical substitution for a goalkeeper? Like, I mean, penalty shootout in soccer or something. Yeah, no, that'd be mad.
You never know. You never know.
A lot of games in the Tailteann Cup this weekend. Like you said, at least they got a bit of a launch this week. I'll run through them, Keane, and you might stumble upon whatever game is tickling your fancy most. Kildare against Longford, and I think in recent years, in particular, Longford have a brutal record against Kildare. So despite Kildare being downtrodden and only beating Wicklow this year, they probably will feel they'll have their number here. Leitrim, Waterford, Sligo against Wexford, Fermanagh, Wicklow, Down will meet Limerick, Offaly do battle with London, Antrim, Tipperary, and then Laois against Carlow. So, Keane, where would you like to start?
I think Sligo. I think Sligo would be my pick to win the Tailteann Cup. I think Down in Kildare, I don't know how seriously they're going to take that, because like after the match when Down lost to Armagh, Conor Laverty was nearly crying in his interview. He was saying that they want to be in Sam, they have no interest in Tailteann Cup. Like, so I don't know how easy it is to lift them, how many players are still there. Same with Kildare.
Keane, sorry to interrupt you, Keane, but just like, I think any manager worth his salt, and I would imagine Conor Laverty is just that. But that's initial disappointment. He will now look at this as a potential month or so where he can prepare his team and bring them onto that next level ahead of next year. It's like a mini preseason a few months before that will start. So I think he should look at the positive of this now after getting over the initial negative.
Yeah, they should absolutely, but I'm just not sure will they or not. Like, because like teams when they end up in the Tailteann Cup, like I think they need to realise that it's like they're not there by accident. Like you know they had a whole league campaign and they had a chance to get to their provincial final to get like if they wanted to be in Sam, they should have bet Westmeath in that league final. Like you know, so like I mean, if you end up there, you're there because you deserve to be there and you should treat it with respect. And like I don't know, like there's teams even lower division teams like Wicklow threw their arse at the Tailteann Cup last year. I don't think they will this year. Even Offaly fell apart last year in the Tailteann Cup. So
We've
I
been
don't know.
brutal, Keane. Now, down through the years, Offaly's mentality towards qualifiers and Tailteann Cups has been
Yeah.
atrocious. And that's one thing that Declan Kelly said to me even last November that they were going to go after. So, like, and that's the key to it. Like, Meath were in the exact same position as, we say, Kildare or Down were in, where, like, they were on the floor after being beaten in the province, and they picked it up. Some will pick it up, others won't. I just wouldn't, and I get your thoughts on this, Keane. I wouldn't be fancy. I wouldn't be having Kildare as one of the teams to win it now at the minute. Talent-wise and on a given day, yes. But it looked to me looking at that semi-final that a lot of lads had maybe checked out. And even, like, I wasn't blown away by Derek Irwin's language even that he was using the other day. I think it was more hope than anticipation, but that's just... And the fact the game is in Hawkfield, boys, as well. Hawkfield holds like 1,300 or something like that. Like, if that'll fairly tell you how far Kildare football has fallen, that they're playing
It doesn't have a
championship
PA system, you know, they can't read out the substitutions, can't play the anthem, nothing.
Well, thanks a million for that. I'm covering that game, so I'll be looking at lads like this and trying to get numbers from afar. I'll have to bring the binoculars and that, but that'll just show you how far Kildare football has fallen and the general apathy in the county that they didn't think, I don't know what fee or if they're paying a fee for using Dr. Cullen Park or whether to go to Nolan Park on a given day or whatever. But the fact the game is in Hawkfield will probably show you the low ebb that Kildare are at the minute.
Yeah. Keane, any other games sticking out to you?
Just as was a bit on the Tailteann Cup. Like, I don't know what you think, but I think when you go into the Tailteann Cup, there's 16 teams. I think just throw all the 16 teams into a hat and just do straight knockout, because I know you're looking for more games, but I suppose like more meaningful games, like, because you look at them groups there, like the number one seed is probably going to win their 3 games out of 3 in all the groups, I think anyway. And I think, you know, sometimes like after you're playing London, like, I mean, how are we going to get excited for that? You know, Kildare going down to play Waterford, like, I mean, how many Kildare people are you going to see in far field, like, you know? So I think I think the amount of counties that want to check out, as Michael say, I'd say the amount of lads that want to go to America and are kind of sticking around, and if I leave the panel, will the manager have me in next year? You know, all this type of stuff. So I think throw the 16 teams into a hat, play it off, you know, straight knockout. And if a team like a Sligo, who I think will apply themselves, will go for it and end up in the semi-final or final, they'll be there anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the group stage for Tailteann Cup maybe is losing its appeal already.
Yeah, it is a tough sell, Michael, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the only thing is that, like, if you are committing to a county squad for a year, I would say at least you're guaranteed, like, the provinces are a dead duck. Well, 2 of them are definitely a dead duck at the minute. So at least if you're, say, a Waterford and you're going into the Tailteann Cup, you're guaranteed at least 3 games. That's the one thing I will say. Maybe it's an easier sell to get lads to commit when you're saying, well, listen, I know we're playing Kerry in the first round and that's not going to be easy, but we have 3 games here against opposition where we have a realistic chance of getting a result. So that's maybe a flip of what Keane said, but you'll know after this weekend realistically what teams are taking it seriously and what teams aren't. Like, by all accounts, like you only kind of hear things back after, but like Offaly's approach to the Tailteann Cup last year was like pathetic by all accounts, and they were absolutely beaten out the gate again by Wexford as a result of it. And you kind of scramble the draw against Laois and you're thinking, oh, that was maybe just a bit of an anomaly or whatever. But no, they were annihilated, and you'll have a handful of teams that will not treat it as it needs to be treated, because unless you have everyone fully in board, in body and mind, you haven't a hope of getting to Croke Park.
Okay. Any final thoughts, Keane? And by the way, who do you think is going to win it? Sligo?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Sligo. Yeah, I would say talent-wise, Down and Kildare should be in the final. But I think Sligo, yeah, like, I really like what they've done over the last couple of years. Like 2 years ago, they should have beaten Cavan in the semi-final of the Tailteann Cup, and last year they weren't in it because they got to the county or the Connacht final. So I think Sligo will be really close. Like they ran Galway to a couple of points a few weeks ago. They started to integrate some of the 20s into the team that won the Connacht and got to the All-Ireland final. So, yeah, Tony McEnany's done a really good job there. So I'd probably go for Sligo as my pick, yeah.
Yeah, I think, like, and to borrow a phrase you used a while ago, I think Kildare will throw their arse at it. That's a great phrase, like, you hadn't heard it in a while. But I think Down or Fermanagh could win it. Just in terms of, like, last year, I know that Down are disappointed, but they won 2 of their group games last year. They got to the final or semi-final. Am I mixing it
Final,
up?
yeah. Beaten by Meath last year, yeah.
They scored 8 goals against Laois in the semi-final, wasn't it? Something crazy like that. So I think they could do it. They could turn around their disappointment and do it. Maybe Fermanagh would be an outside call, but yeah. Michael, who do you think?
I probably would have a bit of faith in Down. I'd be surprised if Down don't get to a semi-final or final anyway. I don't think Conor Laverty is the type. Like, this is his second year. They haven't. They got promotion this year. Obviously, they would have feel that they could have won a Tailteann last year. They haven't anything to show for all their endeavours so far. Like, if he's going into a third year, does he want to fall into the third year, or does he want to power into the third year? They're playing Division 2 football next year as well. What better way to go into 2025 than knowing you're in the Sam Maguire and knowing you're playing Division 2 as well? So I would expect them to regroup fairly strong. I know they were hurt over the Armagh result, but I would expect them to regroup fairly strong. Just something there on attendances and stuff as well. The GAA have put out ticket packages for the All-Ireland stages and for the Tailteann. And you could say in one breath that it's rewarding supporters that go to all three, but I also think they're trying to get more bodies through the turnstiles, because, like, it's so difficult to have the money to be able to go to all these games. Like, I think someone said there's 48 games in the All-Ireland series, senior football. Like, that's madness, boys. And how are we at a stage where there's preliminary quarterfinals as well for the All-Ireland stage? Like, it just makes no sense. Like, you're just removing any jeopardy from it. If you're going to play all these games, make them high stakes, make them that there's something on the line, that you can't be, win a game, draw a game, and get into a preliminary quarterfinal. To me, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, well, look, we'll finish up on that. Thanks very much, lads, for joining us, and everyone enjoy the matches over the weekend. We'll be back again next week. Cheers, lads.
Cheers, man.